Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Krap. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is the third day of a 5-day course that I'm teaching, and I realize some of you guys might just be here for the morning or for meditation. It's really up to you how long you would like to stay. You're welcome to stay as long as you like. I actually have a course going on right now called Harmony in Relationships, and we've been meeting each day, and we start with meditation, and then I share a talk to help students to understand this path to enlightenment that the Buddha taught. So we're going to be starting with meditation this morning, and then afterwards I'm going to move into this talk about true love, love without attachment, because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we don't understand what love is. We lack that wisdom, and because of that, we really struggle in our relationships, whether it's with a life partner, your children, or your parents, or your siblings. You might be finding that you're having difficulties or struggles in these relationships. You might find that there's harshness and bitterness and hostility in some of these relationships. But when you cultivate the wisdom of the path to enlightenment and you train your mind, you'll be able to get to the point where all your relationships are harmonious, that you don't have difficulties and struggles in your day-to-day relationships. And part of that is to understand true love, love without attachment. So I'm going to be teaching you guys that after our meditation today. So if you'd like to join for the meditation, the way that I start is I start with some chanting to kind of ease us into the meditation. If you would like to see these chants or even chant along, we have laminated sheets over there on the cabinet that you're welcome to help yourself to. You'll see those chants over there. They're in the Pali language. This is the historical language of the teachings of the Buddha. And during his lifetime, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. So every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word for word. This was a way to commit the teachings to memory. So there aren't any rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship in the teachings of the Buddha. These chants aren't prayer or anything like that. There's nothing mystical or magical about the teachings of the Buddha. They use these chants to really commit the teachings to memory because everything he taught was oral during his lifetime. The technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world, so they had to recite his teachings orally in order to commit them to memory. So you guys might not consider writing things down as technology, but 2,500 years ago, that was technology to write things down. So that didn't exist in the region of the world where the Buddha was teaching. So they used chanting in order to commit the teachings to memory. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of respect and gratitude and admiration for the Buddha in these chants. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself at all, because a Buddha doesn't walk around and say, here, chant these things to me out of respect for me. This would be arrogance and pride and ego. And a Buddha doesn't have that. An enlightened being has eliminated any kind of putting yourself above people or putting yourself below people. That's been eliminated from the enlightened mind. So I know that the Buddha wouldn't have created these. But if you learn from a teacher of how to move your mind from this anger and sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all these feelings are eliminated from your mind, and now you're only experiencing peace, calm, serenity, and contentedness with joy, you would have a lot of respect for this person too. So his students had a lot of respect and gratitude for him because he taught without any expectation of anything in return. And he helped his students to be able to get to this enlightened mental state by sharing what it was that he did in order to get to this enlightened mental state. And then he shared it with his students so that they could understand how to do that as well. So I suspect that these chants were actually created by his students, either during his life or after his death. So I chant these as a way to ease the mind into meditation, but just understand there's nothing mystical or magical here. It's not a rite, a ritual, or ceremony, or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. After the chanting, you're going to hear me come in with some guidance where I'm going to be guiding you in the meditation for a brief period of time. It's like basically giving you instructions of how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and anyone joining us online will just all be meditating. Now, during that period of time where it's quiet, It's not possible for there to be permanent quietness. If your mind craves permanent quiet, when you hear a car go by or a bird chirping or a dog barking, you'll be frustrated or annoyed. So just understand that it's not possible for you to have permanent quietness because you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing. So you will hear the occasional sound in any kind of environment. But if you're not having a craving for permanence, where you're craving permanent silence, you can be peaceful and joyful. You won't be annoyed or frustrated or agitated or anything like that. After we do that period of time where we're just meditating and it's essentially quiet, we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class and helping you guys understand this topic of true love. So if you would like to join, there's basically 4 positions that the Buddha taught in order to meditate. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. Oftentimes people are learning meditation in the seated position. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position so you can understand that. But just understand that this is guidance. This isn't telling you what you should or shouldn't do with the body, because not everybody's going to find the same thing to be comfortable. You're going to need to find what's comfortable for you. So what I'm sharing with you are just suggestions that you might consider in terms of finding a position that's comfortable. It's not about everybody sitting in exactly the same spot. So you might be sitting on the floor or on a chair. If you're at home, you might be on a sofa or a bench or in a wheelchair or something like this. You can sit however you're comfortable. If you're on the floor, oftentimes people use cushions in order to soften their rear. So you might have a few cushions under your rear. And then if you're going to sit cross-legged, you like to bring your legs together just lightly, where if they're real tight, this could impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, which gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So you might consider doing that as well. The hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Not everyone's going to find that to be comfortable. So there's other options as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. You might decide to put your palms up or even just rest your hands comfortably in your lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you. And that's the same thing for anybody that's in a chair. You might sit with your feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so you could do that as well. And then you can place your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. In terms of the upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, which will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, but it's also going to help you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join along in. Then I'm going to come back in with guidance on the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakava Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Nammo Namang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rogavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. For those of you guys that are here, maybe for your first time, I'll share a couple of things with you to help you feel even more comfortable here at the temple. In this classroom, we have bathrooms that you're welcome to help yourself to at any time. In the back of the room, there's 2 doors, the very last 2 doors. Those are bathrooms. Feel free to use those at any time. We even have bathrooms outside the classroom. If you go out to the parking lot, there's signs that'll take you around to the main temple bathrooms. You're welcome to use those at any time. We have refreshments and snacks here that you guys are welcome to help yourself to. These are provided by our students, that if you like some water or some snacks, it's all over there. Just help yourself to anything that you see. So the teachings of the Buddha are to help you to be able to get to this enlightened mental state where your mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will never again experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings in others are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. You don't even experience the slightest displeasure by the time you get to enlightenment. Your mind will be focused. You'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Your personal and professional relationships will be really blossoming because you won't have any bitterness or harshness or hostility in your mind anymore. So that's not what you're putting out. So you won't be experiencing that coming back to you. You'll get to the point where you're not even having a bad mood any longer, that the causes and conditions that are producing the bad mood have been uprooted and eliminated from the mind. Oftentimes we think that in the unenlightened state, with our lack of wisdom, that when you get angry or frustrated or irritated, that somebody else is causing you to be angry or frustrated. But what the Buddha helps you to be able to see in a way that you can independently verify is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And because your own mind is actually causing these feelings, you can actually eliminate them. And that happens through training of the mind. There's nothing in the teachings of the Buddha that is based in belief. You're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping that something good happens when you die. That's not what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach rules and commandments that if everybody follows these rules, then the world will become a better place. He didn't teach rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship and things like this. Instead, he taught you to look inward and train your mind, uprooting these pollutions that he discovered. He discovered 10 individual pollutions of the mind. And when you use the tools and techniques that the Buddha taught in order to uproot these out of the mind, you'll be able to see that your mind's becoming peaceful and joyful and calm and serene. So because you're learning and investigating his teachings now in this life, you're reflecting on those to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life and training your mind. And because you're learning now, reflecting now, and practicing now, you see the results now in this life that you'll be able to see in situations where you were once angry or frustrated or agitated. You'll be in those same situations and you won't be experiencing those feelings anymore. So this comes through the cultivation of wisdom, growing and doing this inner work, this inner development, essentially becoming a better and better human being, essentially evolving, much like a lizard or a snake or another animal might evolve into a better and better species. We're human beings, we're not animals, but we can evolve into a better and better species where we don't have to experience anger and frustration any longer or any of those other discontent feelings. And this is accomplished through cultivation of wisdom. One of the things that the mind lacks wisdom about is about the true love. And what is true love and how to practice true love. And because we don't necessarily understand this, then when we're practicing in day-to-day life, we're not experiencing love in our own life. That oftentimes we really struggle in relationships, whether it's with a life partner or our children, our parents, our siblings. You might find that you have a lot of challenges in some of these relationships, but you can actually transform all of this through cultivation of wisdom and through training of your mind. You can make different decisions and you will experience different results in your relationships. But if you don't have the wisdom of how to practice true love, you wouldn't be able to receive true love. Because as you're going through day-to-day life, if you're putting out true love and you understand what that is and you're practicing true love, you'll see more and more people will be practicing that with you. This is the cause and effect, that whatever you put out, this is what's going to come back to you. So you need to first cultivate the wisdom of what is true love intellectually. You need to be able to reflect on that, to independently verify it, and then you need to practice it. And when you're practicing true love, you'll see more and more that true love is coming back to you. And you'll be able to identify it when it is coming back to you. But if you don't know what true love is, you won't be able to identify it when it's coming back to you. So I'm going to share this topic with you and help you to be able to understand this intellectually. But you shouldn't believe anything that I have to say. Don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything I write in books. Don't believe anything that anybody else says. You're an independent practitioner on a journey to cultivate wisdom, and you need to be able to learn, examine, and investigate. You need to reflect on what is being shared to independently verify it, and then you need to practice it, integrating it into your day-to-day life so you can see the truth and cultivate wisdom that what's being shared with you is actually working. As we go on our talk today, you guys are able to ask any and all questions that you would like. If you would like to ask questions here at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowl in front of the camera. If you could just get a microphone, take that back to your seat with you if you like. You can press the gray button, you'll see the lights come on, and then you just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you on the live stream online as well. If you talk here without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you online. And if you take one of these microphones, you can just keep it with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. If you're online and you would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So in order to understand this topic of true love, the first thing I need to help you guys to understand is what's causing your painful feelings. Because oftentimes we think that love causes painful feelings. You might have been in relationships that didn't go so well, and you experience painful feelings. And you might think that it's because you love this person that's why you experience these painful feelings. But this isn't actually true. This is the lack of wisdom that the mind has, that it thinks that love is causing painful feelings. This is part of the unknowing of true reality, or the misunderstanding or the confusion that the mind has. So the first thing I'm going to help you to understand is what's actually causing these painful feelings. This is something that I taught in this course on Monday. I went through what's called the 3 universal truths and the 4 noble truths in order to help students to be able to learn, reflect, independently verify, and to be able to practice and be able to see what's actually causing their mind to experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings. So for those students, this is going to be a reminder. But for some of you guys, you weren't here. There's a teaching called the 4 noble truths that the Buddha teaches as a very first teaching. This is where you can break through to understanding what's causing all of these painful feelings and all the other feelings that you experience, so that way you can actually work to eliminate them. If you didn't understand what was causing your guilt and shame and fear and stress and anxiety and all these other feelings, you would never be able to eliminate them. You'd be stuck in this constant cycle of experiencing anger and sadness and frustration over and over and over and over again. So what the Buddha teaches you is that in the first noble truth, he explains to you that the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing is a discontent mind. That the mind experiences conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, your mind experiences a feeling. And that feeling is either going to be pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. Pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are very pleasant for you to experience. Then there's painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful to experience in your day-to-day life. And then there's feelings like neither painful nor pleasant. This is like shyness. It's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say you were on public transportation and somebody came and sat really close to you and your body was touching their body. You might say, it's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind is uncomfortable or dissatisfied. This is called discontentedness. And these are conditioned feelings, meaning that you're experiencing this feeling based on some condition. So for example, if it's sunny outside, You might get really happy and excited. But then because everything in the world around you is impermanent, if you base your feeling of happiness on the sun, that means when the sun's no longer there, because it is going to change, it's not going to be sunny permanently. If you base your happiness on the sun, when it's raining, you'll be sad or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, that means that when that changes, because it is going to change, because everything around you is impermanent, when your bank account balance goes here, you'll be frustrated or sad or irritated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. This is what the unenlightened mind is doing, is it's forming its inner feelings based on some condition. These are called conditional feelings, that essentially the mind gets happy and excited, but that's only temporary. The mind's going to end up in the sadness or the frustration. Here and there, the mind's going up and down and up and down. This is the first noble truth, explaining to you that your mind is experiencing these conditioned feelings. The unenlightened mind is forming its inner feelings based on some condition. The second noble truth is explaining to you the cause of this discontent feelings, where the mind's shaken up and uncalm. That the cause of this is called craving, desire, attachment. These are wants and expectations, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be permanent, the chasing after the objects of your affection. Essentially, it's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind thinks something external is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. The mind is craving things to be permanent when in reality you live in an impermanent world. You can look around you and you can see that everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. But as long as your mind is craving permanence, when you experience impermanence, your mind's not going to like that, and it's going to experience these discontent feelings. So an example for a relationship, think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got in a relationship with. When you guys first got together, things were wonderful. You met this person, you were either physically attracted to them, maybe intellectually attracted to them, maybe you were financially attracted to them or what have you, right? You were attracted to this person and they started showing you some interest. They started showing affection towards you. They started calling you, checking in on you, inviting you out to dinner, the movies. You guys were going to the park. You're having great conversations. You're going on these great walks. You might have been having intimate contact at different times. And there was all these pleasant feelings that you were getting based on the condition of having this boyfriend or girlfriend, having a partner, having someone that's showing you affection. That was the condition that the mind was experiencing these pleasant feelings based on. But then over time in this relationship, your expectations grew of this person. You wanted them to do certain things, and they wanted you to do certain things, and you couldn't meet their expectations permanently because of impermanence, and they couldn't meet your expectations permanently. So now you guys got disgruntled and agitated and frustrated, and you broke up. And now you might have been angry or frustrated. You might have been lonely or bored. You might have been missing this person because the mind's holding on and craving permanence, wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality it was always impermanent. But in this situation, the mind associates this with love. The mind thinks that because I love this person or I cared about this person, that now I'm experiencing these painful feelings. This is the lack of wisdom that the mind has. It doesn't realize that there's this craving, this desire, this attachment, this longing, yearning, and craving for things to be permanent. The same thing is true if you've had grandma or grandpa die, or mom or dad have died, or brothers and sisters, someone else that's close to you. You might have grieved or felt sorrowful during this period of time. It wasn't your love that was causing this sorrow or this grief or this misery that you were experiencing. It was the mind craving permanence, wanting grandma or grandpa to be permanent, or mom or dad, or brothers and sisters, or other people around you. The mind didn't understand the universal truth of impermanence, that because grandma and grandpa were born, they had to die. There was no way around it. Every single one of us were going to die. Because we're born, we have to die because we are impermanent, just like everything else in the world. But if your mind craves permanence, you'll have sorrow and grief and pain and displeasure, and you'll tend to associate that with your love. Or say in a situation where you go to a wedding, maybe brothers or sisters or cousins or friends or coworkers are getting married, and maybe you or other people around you are grieving or sorrowful during this period of time. Well, this is a really joyful time. They're going out into the world, starting a new relationship, starting a new chapter in their life, but yet people are grieving and sorrowful. Why? Because they're craving permanence. You look at brother and sister going off into the world with someone else, and the mind's like, that's my brother and that's my sister. They're with me. They're supposed to be with me, right? The mind's holding on to them, craving for them to be permanent, but yet they're going off into the world with somebody else. And the mind is confronted with this impermanence that it doesn't understand. And because it's craving permanence, it really struggles during this period of time. Or if you think back to like getting dropped off at university, or if you can think all the way back to when you got dropped off at grade school or primary school, or if you've had children and you've dropped off your children at primary school, you can see that they're crying and they're grieving as they're going off to school. It's not because of love. It's because they're craving for mom and dad to be permanent. They thought mom and dad were permanent. And here they go off into the world at 3 years old, 5 years old, what have you. And now they're sorrowful and they're grieving and they're sad. And maybe the parents are grieving too as their child goes off into the world. So this is the mind craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent. And I'll give you another example that's not a relationship so you can see it, right? Think about if you had a brand new car and you bought this brand new car and you were so proud of it and you felt so good about this brand new car. And now you drive it and you park it at a store and you go inside. And when you come out, there's a scratch on your car and you get frustrated, you get angry, you get irritated. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car, right? And it's not because you love your car, right? Love, you can't love an actual car. When you understand what true love is, you'll see that you can't love an actual car. You can only love an actual living being. The reason why the mind is experiencing this frustration and agitation is because it's craving for this car to be permanent. And when it sees this scratch, that represents impermanence, and the mind doesn't understand impermanence. It's not the scratch or the person who scratched your car that's causing the mind to be frustrated. It's the mind craving and longing, yearning, wanting and expecting this car to be beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise here, because when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire to not scratch anybody's car. But the fact of the nature is that because we live in an impermanent world, this car is going to get scratched. It's only a matter of time that it's going to get scratched. The paint's going to get faded. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn, perhaps. This is all impermanence. But as long as our mind is craving permanence, when we're confronted with that impermanence, the mind doesn't like it. You can see with the examples that I gave you with the sun, if you get happy when it's sunny and you get frustrated when it's raining, you can see right there that there's no person involved. So it's not other people that are causing your mind to be discontent or angry or frustrated. Or if your bank account balance is here and you get happy, and then it goes down here and you get angry or frustrated, you can see that there's no other person involved. So it's not love that's causing the mind to be discontent. This is the mind craving permanence. And you can independently verify this for yourself. Remember, don't believe what I have to share with you. Look at your own life. Look at a situation where you've recently been angry or frustrated or irritated. Might have been this morning, might have been yesterday or last week. Think about that situation with these fresh eyes, with this new wisdom. Because at that time, you might have been trying to blame other people for the feelings that you were experiencing. But look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind wanted? And if you would have got what you wanted or what you expected, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you experienced the anger and the frustration or some other discontent feeling. You should be able to independently verify this for yourself and see the truth that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And you can have a real breakthrough to being able to understand what's causing these feelings so that then you can eliminate them. Because sometimes when we experience relationships and we think it's love that's causing these painful feelings, you might push away relationships. You might think, I'm never going to have a boyfriend or girlfriend ever again. I'm never going to get married again. No way. I don't want that pain in my life ever again. But it's not the love that's causing this. It's the mind holding on and craving for this person to be permanent and for them to be a certain way. The mind is wanting and expecting them to be a certain way. And when the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy. And when it doesn't get what it wants, it gets these painful feelings like anger, sadness, and frustration and others. And when you falsely attribute these feelings to something external, what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to push people away, or you'll push a situation away. You might have pushed people away in your life, like friends or family or coworkers or people like this. Or you might have pushed the situation away, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem because you still get angry, you still get frustrated, you still get agitated or annoyed. If this person or this situation was the true problem, when you pushed it away, you'd be peaceful and joyful for the rest of your life. The second thing that you'll do when you falsely understand what the true problem and the true cause of this problem is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile with people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, because the mind attributes those painful feelings that you're experiencing to something external. So you'll tend to push these things away, but also you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile, almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. The mind is trying to fear this other person into doing things your way, because the mind's trying to get those cravings fulfilled. It's trying to get what it wants. It's trying to get, you might put your expectations on people and try to control people and force people to do things your way. So this is what the mind's doing with its lack of wisdom of what the real cause of these painful feelings are, is it's pushing things away. This is called aversion, where you're pushing people or you're pushing a situation away. You're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to people, or you're putting your expectations on people and trying to control them. And you don't have to think of yourself in a bad way. You don't have to be guilty or shameful. This is what every unenlightened mind is doing because of its lack of wisdom of the second noble truth. It doesn't realize that the problem is internal. It perceives the problem as external. This is part of the lack of wisdom or the confusion or the misunderstanding that the mind has. But if you look at this objectively, you can have a real breakthrough to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and then you can actually solve them. Because the third noble truth is explaining to you that you can actually solve this discontent feelings by eliminating the cravings, desires, attachments that are producing them. You can learn how to pursue things as a goal, as an objective or interest. But when you chase after things and you can only be happy when you get what you want, you can only be happy if you get what you want. And because we live in an impermanent world, you can't always get what you want. So if you chase after things with longing and yearning, wanting and expecting things to be a certain way, you're essentially sabotaging your ability to be happy permanently. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind keeps chasing after things, forming its inner feelings on whether you get it or not. And in some cases you get it and you're so happy, and in other cases you don't get it and now you're angry or sad or frustrated. But if you are all the way over here on the other side, where you never pursued anything and you were dull and lethargic and lazy and complacent, you're not going to be peaceful and joyful there either. So the Buddha is inviting you to come to the middle way where you can pursue things as a goal, as an objective or an interest. A true goal is a goal that you gradually work towards with wise decision making, and you're not forming your inner feelings on whether you accomplish it or not, that you can work towards it, realizing that in some cases you're going to accomplish your goals and in other cases you aren't, and that's okay. But when you start forming your inner feelings based on external things, you can't be permanently happy because all the things around you are constantly changing. They're impermanent. So you can eliminate this longing, yearning, this chasing after things, this forming your inner feelings based on these external things. This comes with the training of the mind. And one of the things that you need to be able to understand that is not love that's causing these feelings, that it's the craving, it's the desire, it's wanting mom to be a certain way. It's wanting dad to be a certain way. It's wanting boyfriend, girlfriend, children to be a certain way. And if they're the way you want them to be, you will be happy. But if they're not doing what you want them to do, you'll be angry or sad or frustrated. It's not your care. It's not your concern. It's the craving for permanence, wanting things to be done a certain way. And then the fourth noble truth, which I don't have the first and the fourth one up here just because this is a reminder, but the fourth noble truth is explaining to you that the complete solution to solving these discontent feelings is the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that you're learning and growing and developing in order to train your mind. And this is what I taught on Monday. But if you weren't here, it's okay because I've recorded it many times. It's on our YouTube channel, on our podcast, it's in our books and all these other things. So the mind in the unenlightened state is misunderstanding attachment as love. These cravings, desires, attachments are masquerading as love. Someone might think, oh, I love you, therefore I want you to be with me because you make me happy. This isn't actual love, but this is what the mind thinks in the unenlightened state. You might meet somebody, you're attracted to them, again, physically, intellectually, maybe financially, you're attracted to them. And now you guys spend some time together, maybe a month or two or however long, everything's going really well. And at some point, you or them, you might say to each other, I've fallen in love with you. I love you too, right? Now all of a sudden we're in love. We've fallen in love with each other. But now there's a period of time that goes on that we're in love. And then over time, we start having problems and difficulties and we argue with each other and we get frustrated. And then we get to a point where we say, I don't love you anymore. We need to end our relationship. I've fallen out of love with you. Well, you haven't actually fallen in love and out of love with this person. What you've done is you've fallen into craving, desire, attachment, and you're falling out of craving, desire, attachment. Essentially, what's happened at the beginning of the relationship is you had certain expectations. You had certain things that you wanted from this person. And you spent some time with them for a period of time, and you looked at what they were doing, and they were meeting your expectations. And when they started meeting your expectations and you checked off enough of those things, you said, I love you. And because I love you, I want you to be with me because you make me happy. And when you're with me, I'm happy. But when you're not with me, I'm not happy. This isn't love. This is attachment. This is the mind attaching your feelings to this person. And if this person's with you, you're happy. But when they're away from you, you're not happy. So they go on a business trip and you feel miserable. You miss them. This isn't the love. This is the attachment. This is the craving for permanence. And now when you guys break up, oh, you're really upset then, or you're really feeling bored or lonely or missing this person at that point, right? This is the attachment. There might be love in there, but it's being polluted with this craving, desire, attachment, these wants and expectations, wanting this person to be a certain way. So I'm going to teach you what true love is so you can get these cravings, desires, attachments out of the way and your true love can shine through. And now you can have fulfilling and satisfying relationships. You can have sustaining relationships where you don't have broken relationships over and over and over and over again. But first you need to understand what craving, desire, attachment is, and that this is masquerading as love, that the mind thinks that I love you, therefore I want you to be with me. This is selfishness. This is you're meeting my expectations now, so I will say I love you, and I will act like I love you, and I will function like I love you. But the moment you stop meeting my expectations, I don't love you anymore. I've fallen out of love with you because you're no longer doing what I want you to do. Right? This is craving, desire, attachment. This is wants and expectations masquerading as love. What true love is I love you as you are. I love you unconditionally. I don't want anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. I just love you as you are. This over here, this craving, desire, attachment, this masquerading as love, we might call this conditional love. Even though there's no such thing as conditional love, that might be what we call it. It's, if you meet my expectations, if you meet my conditions, if you do what I want you to do, I will say I love you, and I will function like I love you, and I will tell you that I love you. But when you stop doing what I want you to do, I don't love you anymore. That's conditional love. But there's no such thing as conditional love, but you can understand what that means. What we're talking about with true love is it's unconditional love. There's nothing you have to do in order for me to start loving you. So therefore, there's nothing you can do for me to stop loving you. It doesn't matter what you do. I love you as you are. And I can disagree with your choices and decisions while still loving you as a person. Because if you understand the universal truth of impermanence, then you understand that you will disagree with people's choices and decisions. But if you can only love people who make decisions the same way as you, there's only one person in the world that you're going to ever be able to love. Because there's only one person in the world that makes decisions the same way as you. Do you know who that person is? Who makes decisions the same way as you? Only you, right? Only yourself. You're the only one that makes decisions the same way as you. So if you have the expectation that people have to make decisions the same way as you, and that's the only way that you can love them, then you can only love yourself. And you might actually find that hard to do sometimes, right? You might have this negative self-talk or this inner dialogue that's kind of degrading and diminishing yourself, right? So you would like to get to the point where you can separate the choices and decisions that people make from the person themselves, where you can love the person while disagreeing with the choices and decisions that they make. So this way, you can love everybody. You didn't have to do anything to earn my love, so therefore there's nothing you can do for me to stop loving you. What love is a genuine interest in seeing you be well. It's unconditional love. It's not this craving, desire, attachment that's masquerading as love. This craving, desire, attachment that's masquerading as love is, I love you, therefore I want you to be with me because you make me happy. It's all about me. It's you do what I want you to do. You do what I expect you to do, and I'll say I love you. What true love is, what unconditional love is I love you as you are. You didn't do anything to earn my love, so therefore there's nothing you can do for me to stop loving you. Even though my mom's no longer alive, even you murdered my mom, I can still love you, which means I have a genuine interest in seeing you be well. And part of having a genuine interest in seeing you be well is to not put expectations on you and try to control you and force you to do things my way. Because that's what this conditional love that isn't really true love, which is masquerading as love, that's what we tend to do over here. We put expectations on other people and we try to control other people. We try to get mom and dad and brothers and sisters to do things our way. And again, when they do things our way, we're happy, but when they don't do things our way, we get angry or frustrated. Or boyfriend or girlfriend, when they do things our way, we're happy, but when they don't do things our way, we're angry or frustrated or sad. What true love is I love you as you are. I love you unconditionally. I'm not putting my expectations on you. I'm not trying to control you. I'm not trying to force you to do things my way, because that's the selfishness over here. Instead, true love is to understand that you need to make your own decisions and you're responsible for your own wellness. I'm not responsible for your wellness. I'm not responsible for your happiness. But for me to love you as you are and have a genuine interest in seeing you be well, I need to step back and not put expectations on you. I don't want anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. I just love you as you are. This is true love. And you're going to need to practice this through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Because when you have craving, desire, attachment, and you see mom and dad headed for a problem, or you see brothers and sisters, or you see your boyfriend or girlfriend headed for a problem, you might want to step in and fix it and stop them from doing that. Because if they have a problem, if they have difficulties, you're going to experience painful feelings. That's your craving, desire, attachment, wanting them to be permanently happy and not understanding that they are responsible for their own happiness. You're not responsible for their happiness. So when they're headed for difficulty, you might feel like the way to solve your painful feelings is to step in and try to control them and put your expectations on them and get them to do things your way. But this just leads to difficulties. This leads to turmoil. This leads to disharmony, because now mom and dad and brothers and sisters feels like you're forcing them to do things your way. So you're going to need to learn how to step back and not put your expectations on people and try to control people. And one of the challenges is that we've oftentimes grown up in homes where people have been putting their expectations on us. Maybe mom or dad have been putting their expectations on you and trying to control you. Maybe older brothers and sisters have been trying to control you. And in your mind, you know that your mom and dad love you to a certain degree. And when you see all these expectations coming at you, you might think that that's what it means to love somebody. So now when you're in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might be functioning in the same way as your parents, where you're putting these expectations on your boyfriends and girlfriends, your husbands and wives, and now you think that's love, that if you can get these people to do things your way, that that's your love. But if you step back from this and you look at it objectively, you can understand that you don't like it when people try to force you to do things. But yet we don't think about that when you're doing that to other people. So you're going to need to step back and not put expectations on people, realizing that if mom and dad or brothers and sisters are putting expectations on you, that's not their love. They probably have love in there, but when they're putting expectations on you, that's not their love. That's their craving, their desire, their longing, their yearning, their wants and expectations. And now when they're putting that on you, they think that the way they're going to get happy is to force you to do things their way. So you're going to need to recognize their expectations and their wants as coming from them. And you're not required to fulfill other people's wants and expectations. And now you can understand that you can get these expectations and wants out of the way so that your true love can shine through more and more. And now you make decisions based in loving this being as they are, not trying to force them or control them to be any different than they already are. So do you guys have any questions on true love? Before I go on and talk further, I would like to just pause and see if you guys have any questions on what I'm sharing. Remember, you can use the microphones here, or those of you guys online, you can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So do you guys have any questions on anything I've been sharing so far? Questions? Okay, let me see if we have anything online here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, so once you start to understand what true love is, and maybe you don't understand it fully right now, right? Because you've been living in this world of people that are constantly putting expectations on you, and maybe you've been putting expectations on others and thinking that this is love. So if you don't understand this 100% now, it's okay. But as you start understanding this more and more, and you start practicing it, you'll see how this works. That when you're putting out when you're putting out true love, more and more people will be practicing true love with you. But if you're going around the world putting expectations on people, trying to control people, be bitter, harsh, and hostile when they don't do things your way, pushing people out of your life, then you're not going to experience true love because you're not putting out true love. You need to learn what true love is and practice it more and more so that as you're putting this out, this is what's coming back to you. So you're going to need to get more and more in touch with this and train your mind to be able to practice it. And you need to also be able to practice true love with yourself, right? Because one of the things that you might be doing is you might be putting expectations on yourself. Right? You might be speaking to yourself in degrading and disparaging ways. You might be judging yourself, setting certain goals, which you think is an actual goal, but in reality, it's a craving, it's a desire, it's a longing, yearning. And if you get what you want, you're really happy. But if you don't get what you want, you might beat yourself up and think that you're no good. And you might be thinking in degrading and diminishing ways about this being who you are. So you're going to need to learn how to love yourself, that you don't have judgment and expectations of yourself, where you're burdening yourself with these obligations to go out into the world and do things. But at the same time, if you were over here and you never did anything and you were dull and lethargic and lazy, you're not going to enjoy life there either. So that's why there's this middle way where you can gradually work towards things as a goal, objective, or interest, and realize that sometimes you're going to accomplish those goals and sometimes you're not. And that's okay. That's just impermanence. The world is impermanent. But if you have this expectation that every single goal that you set, you will absolutely accomplish it, you're sabotaging your ability to have peace and joy all the time, because you're not going to be able to meet your goals all the time. So you can work towards a goal, objective, or interest, but don't form your feelings on whether you accomplish it or not. If you're 80% of the way there, okay, let's just look at it. Well, I'm 80% of the way there. I could extend my timeline and give myself more time. That's an option. Or I could put more resources into this project or this goal, and maybe more resources will help me to be able to accomplish it. Or you know what? Maybe I look at it and I'm like, hey, 80% is fine. That's actually wonderful. I don't need to go to 100%. I'm completely fine with the 80%, right? So if you can only be happy if you get what you want, that means you can't be happy permanently. So you're going to need to learn how to set a goal, objective, or interest, gradually work towards it with wise decision making, and not form your feelings on whether you accomplish it or not. And get rid of this negative self-talk in the mind where you're degrading and diminishing yourself. And there's certain teachings that the Buddha shares to be able to help you to do that. Meditation is one of those. This is just one meditation that we did this morning, but there's other meditations like loving kindness meditation and things like this that are going to help you to learn how to be more loving and kind and warm and gentle, not only with others, but with this being who you are. Because if you're degrading and diminishing to this being and you're putting expectations on yourself, you're probably doing that in situations with other people too. So you're going to need to transform your mind in the way that you think so that now you can interact in your relationships in a more harmonious way. And it comes through understanding true love and then practicing true love with yourself as well. You're going to need to learn how to practice true love with your parents or your caregivers, because oftentimes we have certain expectations of our parents. We have certain things we want from them. And when they meet our expectations, we're happy. But when they don't meet our expectations, we're angry, we're frustrated. We might think that they're the worst parents ever. I have never met anybody in my entire life that has agreed with everything their parents did. Does anyone in here agree with every single thing their parents ever did? Nobody? Okay, so if we only can love people who do things our way, we can't love everybody, right? So understand that the expectations, the wants, are getting in your way of loving people as they are. Your parents have had different experiences than you. They're going to do things differently than you. Doesn't mean their way's wrong and your way's right. That's the ego. The arrogance, the pride, the mind thinking I'm right and everybody else is wrong. My way is the right way. Everyone else's way is the wrong way. So if mom or dad does things differently than me, that's the wrong way. That's what the mind thinks with its conceit or with its ego. But you can get to the point where you understand that there's more than one way to do things in the world, and not everybody needs to do things your way in order for it to be helpful or wise or beneficial. So if you get rid of your expectations and your wants, where you can just have an appreciation that your parents brought you into this world, they provided you life-sustaining resources in order to get you to the point where you are now, where you're independent, you're able to take care of yourself, you can get to the point where you just love them as they are, realizing that they will do things differently than you, and that's okay, because they've had different experiences than you. You're not going to agree with everything that they do, but you can at least love them as they are and just have an appreciation and gratitude for what they did provide you during your lifetime, because they didn't do things the way that you would expect them to do. No parents have ever done anything exactly the way their children expect them to do, but at least you can just be appreciative and have gratitude for what they did do, which is they provide you life-sustaining resources so that now you're actually independent and you can go out into the world and live a sustaining life. The Buddha teaches some things about parents. I'll read this to you guys because the Buddha talks about our parents as almost like we have this debt of gratitude to them, because our parents are the ones that provide us the ability to come into this world as a human being. And now that we're a human being, you have the best opportunity ever, which is to be able to get to enlightenment. Getting to enlightenment in this human life means that you'll be completely peaceful and completely joyful for the rest of this life, and you won't experience any more rebirth over and over and over again. Now, remember what I share with you. The teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief, including the cycle of rebirth. You can independently verify the cycle of rebirth. You might not have this wisdom right now, but you can gain this wisdom. Right now, you might be believing that you only have one life, but you don't have any evidence that you only have one life, other than the fact that right now, you might not be able to remember your past lives. But as you train your mind more and more, and you start having memories of your past lives, you'll be able to see that this is actually untrue, that you don't just have one life, there's multiple lives. But now you're in this human life, and you have the ability to experience complete peace and complete joy for the rest of your life. So the Buddha talks about our parents here as a way to repay one's father and mother. He says, monks, there are two persons that cannot easily be repaid. What two? One's mother and father. Even if one should carry about one's mother or on one shoulder and one's father on the other, and while doing so should have a lifespan of 100 years, live for 100 years, and if one should, I'm sorry, my eyes are... And while doing so, should have a lifespan of 100 years, live for 100 years, and if one should attend to them by anointing them with balms and massaging, bathing, and rubbing their limbs, and they even void their urine and excrement there, one still would not have done enough for one's parents, nor would one have repaid them, even if one were to establish one's parents as supreme lords and rulers over this great earth, abounding in 7 treasures. One still would not have done enough for one's parents, nor would one have repaid them. For what reason? Parents are of great help to their children. They bring them up, feed them, and show them the world. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. What he's saying is that you could do all these material things for your parents. You could carry them on your shoulders. You could bathe them, massage them, rub them with balms, all these other things, and you still haven't repaid them enough for the things that they've done for you. And the Buddha is saying, well, what have they really done for you? Well, they bring you up, they feed you, and they show you the world. Essentially, they give you this ability to sustain your life in this human existence. And we can love them for that because it takes unconditional love. There's a certain amount of generosity there. They might have had expectations. They might have put their cravings, desires, attachments on you. But nonetheless, they at least had a genuine interest in seeing you be well. And that's why they fed you and they brought you up and they showed you the world, right? So now the Buddha goes on. He says, but monks, if when one's parents lack confidence, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in confidence. If when one's parents are unwholesome, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in virtuous behavior or moral conduct. If when one's parents are selfish, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in generosity. If when one's parents are unwise, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in wisdom. In such a way, one has done enough for one's parents, repaid them, and done more than enough for them. So essentially what he's talking about here is helping them to gain wisdom on the path to enlightenment, because your parents are experiencing most likely a certain amount of discontentedness. They're probably angry. They're probably frustrated. They're probably irritated. They're having difficulties and struggles in the world. But as you embark on this journey on the path to enlightenment, and you're becoming more and more peaceful, you're becoming more and more joyful, the Buddha is saying you could give your parents all these material possessions, but that doesn't repay them for the things that they've done. Instead, what we can do is we can settle them in confidence. And when he talks about settling someone in confidence, what he means is confidence in him, in his teachings. Because if you learn and practice his teachings, you'll be able to see that they're true. Because the more you investigate them and examine them, you reflect on them, then independently verify them, and you practice them, you'll see your minds getting closer and closer to enlightenment. And eventually you'll get to the peace and joy of enlightenment, where for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, there hasn't been any anger, there hasn't been any frustration. You'll know that your mind is enlightened, and it's these teachings that have accomplished that for you. So the Buddha talks about establishing your parents in this confidence, but you need to be able to do this humbly. You can't force it upon them. You can't try to coerce them into learning and practicing the teachings. But the Buddha talks about helping them to have confidence in his teachings. He talks about that when they are unwholesome, that we establish them in virtuous behavior, right? Maybe you see your parents doing things that are unwise, and maybe you give them a little bit of advice to help them to understand that it's unwise. But again, you need to do that without expectation. You need to do that without controlling them. You need to do it in a humble way that helps them to cultivate wisdom. When I was growing up, I used to spend a lot of time with my grandparents, and my grandparents grew up in a very different time than me. They grew up in the USA. They were born in the 1920s, and they were living in a lifetime where certain people with a certain color of skin would eat in one restaurant or at one place in the restaurant and drink from one water fountain, and people with a different color of skin would drink from a different water fountain, and they would go to the back of the restaurant. So there were times when we would be together, and I would hear my grandparents say things that most people would probably consider to be racist. And I would hear these things, and I would say, "Oh, Grandma, why do you think that way? Why don't we talk about this?" And we would talk about it, and we would discuss it. And slowly but surely over time, through seeing that unvirtuous behavior, that unwholesomeness, I was able to help them to be able to see a better way. And now my grandmother, being 101 years old, almost 102 years old, she doesn't have those thoughts anymore in her mind. That's long gone out of her mind. She doesn't think that way, especially now because she has mixed race kids, that she has a great-grandchild that is half Thai and half American. She has great-grandchildren and grandchildren who are African American and Caucasian as well. So this has all helped her to be able to see that human beings are just human beings. But it takes individuals to be able to help our parents and our caregivers to be able to see that better way of life. The Buddha talks about when our parents are selfish, to establish them in generosity. Because when there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind's going to be selfish, and you're going to hold on to things very tightly. And you're going to find it very challenging to share with other people. And what you'll learn on this path to enlightenment is by practicing generosity, where you're giving and sharing with other people, it's going to help your mind to let go, where you're not holding on to things so tightly. Because that's what's going on with the craving for permanence, is the mind's holding on and craving permanence. But when you're practicing generosity, you're living open-handedly and sharing with other people, not always wanting things to be self-satisfying. So you can get to the point where you share with others without any expectation of anything in return. And this will eliminate your selfishness, where you can share with other people openly. So when you see that this is what's benefiting you and it's helping your mind, you might get to the point where you're interested in sharing that with your parents or your caregivers. So when you see that they're selfish, you might decide to help them understand a little bit about generosity. And then the Buddha shares that when they're unwise, meaning lacking wisdom about these natural laws and the things that he taught, that you can establish them in wisdom. This is what's going to help them, and this is what's paying them back for this debt of gratitude of giving us this life, bringing us up, showing us the world, feeding us, and helping us to be able to sustain our life. So these are some words that the Buddha has about our parents. I'm sure that many of us disagree with what our parents did in our day-to-day life. I disagreed with my parents extensively. I had a lot of resentment and hostility growing up about my parents. but that never served me well at all. I needed to get rid of that resentment and hostility in order to have a wonderful life and have a great relationship with my parents. So right now, if you're having difficulties and struggles with these relationships, you can improve that. But it's going to start with training your own mind. I sat back for a long time wanting my mom to change. I kept wanting it and wanting it and wanting it, and it never happened. Right? Every time we were together, it was like fireworks went off, right? We just got angry and frustrated, irritated with each other. But when I trained my mind and I stopped doing that, Mom could see that her mind was the mind that was angry and frustrated. And then Mom worked on her mind, and we got to the point where our relationship was completely fine. We had nothing but love and care and kindness in our relationship. So you're going to need to be able to transform your own mind in order to improve your relationships. And part of that comes with understanding what true love is and understanding that you're not going to agree with everything that your parents did, and that's okay. But at least if you can get to a point where you appreciate the things that they did, like giving you food and clothing and shelter and medical care, this can give you a level of appreciation that you can at least just love them as they are and realize that they're different than you, and that's okay. And then in terms of a life partner, if you have a life partner, you're going to need to be able to practice true love with this person too, where you don't have craving, desire, attachment, and wanting them or trying to force them to be a certain way. These are some of the relationships that you probably have some of the most difficulties with. Your parents, your siblings, your life partners, your children, because this is where the mind has the deepest craving, the deepest attachment. When you spend time with your friends, things are probably quite good. Right? And this is one of the reasons why you might think the problem is your parents or the problem is your siblings, because it's like, hey, when I go out with my friends, everything's great, everything's fine. But in these relationships, you don't have such deep craving. You don't have such deep expectations and wants. But in these relationships with your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, you have these deep cravings where you want them to be a certain way. And this sabotages your ability to have harmonious relationships. So you can get to a point where you are in relationships with a life partner and that you're not putting expectations on each other. The arguments and the fights and all of that stuff, that's not the love. That's the craving, desire, attachment. Love is a genuine interest in seeing this being be well. You don't want anything from them. You don't expect anything from them. You just love them as they are, unconditionally. Do you guys have any questions on any of this? Looks like we have a question coming in. Yeah. Yeah, there's a gray button there. See the lights come on.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
A question in regards to a life partner and mutual respect.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're in a relationship where it's abusive, or they're unfaithful, or
what?
they're
There's
unfaithful, or I'm just of different situations where it's not a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is just accept and love them for who they are, and that you need to accept that that's who they are and love them anyway, even though it's potentially hurting you as a person. Mm-hmm. What do you say about that?
So loving someone as they are doesn't mean that you're going to stay in a relationship with someone. It can still be unwise to be in a relationship, like unfaithfulness could be that, or physical abuse, right? Loving someone is to have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. But you can disagree with this person's choices and decisions and realize that it's unwise for you to be in this relationship, and you can choose to leave the relationship while still maintaining your love. Maintaining your love is that you have a genuine interest in seeing this being be well, but you're not responsible for their love, and just because you love them doesn't mean that you have to be with them, right? So you can love people from afar. Right? So if you're in a relationship and someone's being physically abusive or they're being unfaithful, you can understand from the natural law of Gotama, which is what the Buddha teaches as part of the Eightfold Path, which you didn't learn since you weren't here earlier in the week, you can understand that it's unwise to be with someone who's going outside your relationship, having sex with other people, who's being bitter and hostile and harsh and abusive, and you can choose to move on from the relationship. But you need to be able to understand any painful feelings that you're having because of that. It's not coming from the other person. It's coming from your own mind. Just leaving out of the relationship isn't going to fix your painful feelings. What you've got to be able to do is eliminate the craving, the desire, the attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting and expecting. But now making a decision to move away from the relationship and either being single for a period of time or ultimately having another partner, this is something you might ultimately choose to do out of discernment or wise decision making. Everything that the Buddha taught is based on a foundation of discernment or wise decision making. And he teaches you wise decision making all the way through. But that wise decision making isn't contingent on whether you love somebody or not. But because you can still love somebody even though you realize that they are making unwise decisions, and it's unwise for you to be in this relationship. And now I can choose to leave, maintain my love where I would like to see this being be well, but I'm not responsible for their wellness. It's up to them to find that for themselves. And now I'm going to leave, because having love, you got to love this being. And it wouldn't be very loving and kind to this being to stay in an abusive relationship. So that's why you can choose to leave out of a relationship. But just understand, if you do that, any painful feelings that you're experiencing isn't because of this person. It's because of the mind craving and longing, yearning, and wanting things to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. You guys are quiet. Okay, so I don't have any expectation that you guys will ask questions, right? I don't want you to ask questions. I'm not longing, yearning for it. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to end here by letting you guys know that I'm going to be taking a little break here for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to be teaching you guys this next topic. If you guys would like to come back and learn some more, you're more than welcome to. For those of you guys that are here for the entire course, you guys know that this is the next topic. This is called Practicing in a World of the Unknowing, Relationships with Non-Practitioners. Because when you're learning and practicing these teachings, you're going to be getting to more and more peace, more and more joy, but the people around you might not be practicing these teachings, and I'm going to teach you how to exist in a world where other people aren't understanding these teachings. Because you could have people adamantly believing that you're causing them to be angry, and they're yelling and hollering and trying to convince you that you're causing them to be angry, when in reality you're not. So the more that you're learning and practicing these teachings, your mind is going to be becoming more and more peaceful, but other people aren't. So it's helpful to understand this topic to be able to practice in the world of the unknowing. So right now is 10:35. I'm going to take let's just call it a 25-minute break. We'll get back together at 11 o'clock, and I'm going to teach this next topic. And if you'd like to come back, you're more than welcome to. And I'll just end by saying, I love you. I love you. I love you, meaning I would like to see you be well. I have a genuine interest in seeing you be well. And because of that, I can love every single one of you. I loved you before I met you, and there's nothing you can do for me to stop loving you. I love you as you are. And as you would like to learn and grow and develop, I'm here to help you. But I'm not here to put my expectations on you or force you to be any particular way. So when you get to the point where you don't have any expectations of anybody, you can just love everybody as they are before you even met them. So there's nothing you did to earn my love. So there's nothing you can do for me to stop loving you. I don't suggest you do this, but if you called me from jail tonight and said, David, I murdered somebody and I need to talk to you, I would come and talk to you, and I would come and help you, because I disagree with your choices and decisions of what you did, but I can still love you as a person, meaning that I'm interested in seeing you be well. And I can disagree with your choices and decisions, but that doesn't mean I have to be angry or bitter or hostile or harsh just because we've made different choices. I can love you as a person while disagreeing with your choices and decisions. So I love you as you are. So if you'd like to come back and learn more, you're more than welcome to. If not, perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. If you'd like to get on the path to enlightenment and learn more about this path and how to get to the peace and joy, I suggest you start with this first book, which you can actually get for free. You can download it from our website at buddhadailywisdom.com, and it's free to download it. You can take it and go print it yourself. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for our printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. If your country has access to Amazon, it's on there as well. So you can get access to this first book and start building up a foundation for yourself. You can attend classes here. You can attend through our live stream. They're recorded on YouTube, on Facebook, on our podcast. You can even get personal guidance as well. And it's all available to you at no cost, because I love you and I would like to see you be well. I'm not interested in your money. I don't want anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. I'm just here to help you. So if you would like to take classes, courses, retreats, if you would like books and videos, podcasts, resources to be able to help you, if you would like personal guidance, it's all available for you at no cost. It just means that you need to put in the effort and the energy to learn and grow and develop. And there's help for you to be able to escape from these painful feelings so that you can get to the peace and the joy. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. And perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap.